Are we? There we are. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the SCPS partnering with Parents for Digital Citizenship and School Safety. And we are so pleased that you could join us tonight. We are going to get started by having our presentation of colors from the Seminole County Sheriff's Office Honor Guard, followed by the national anthem by our very own students from Millennium Middle School here, Jocelyn and Joylyn Wagner and Kira Wombley. Thank you.
Hey, colors. Right, face. Forward, march, left, 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 right, right. Right, right, left, 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 march, march. Left, color, halt. Left, face, freeze, set, arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose bright and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Hey, colors. Right, face. Forward, march, left, 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 right, 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 left, 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 right, 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 left, 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 right, 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 left.
Thank you. You may be seated. And thank you to the wonderful Millennium Middle School team for hosting us tonight. The students that just sang for us are middle school students, and I can't believe how beautifully they are already singing and ready to be presenters for us. We thank them, and that was Jocelyn and Joylyn and Kira from Millennium Middle School. Again, I want to say thank you for coming out tonight to hear about school safety, specifically school safety here in Seminole County. We hope to have you learn about the resources available to our students and families and learn about some of the ways that you can partner with the school district to keep our schools welcoming and safe places for our students to learn. As you all know, on September of 2024, a 14-year-old student went into a Georgia high school and forever changed the lives of the individuals in that community. And although that tragedy happened in another state, we did see some heightened activity here in Seminole County, including increased threat activity playing out on social media and sometimes on our campuses. As school systems across the nation grapple with the increased social media activity, there's also a trend here in Florida that was of great concern. And that trend is that we saw a sharp increase in false reports being submitted through Fortify and our other reporting mechanisms. And so tonight's event is about engaging with our parents and caregivers so that we can all be on the same page around this very important topic. This evening, I'm joined by a number of individuals to help us, and first we'll have a panel discussion. That's the first portion of this evening, and in the second portion, we'll have a presentation from Dr. Samir Hindusha. Our panelists will help us answer a number of questions that have been solicited from our stakeholders across the district, including from our parents. And so as we go through today's panel and the discussion with Dr. Hindusha, we're hoping to answer those questions that have been submitted to us. On the panel this evening, we have Chief Rick Francis. Chief Francis leads the Department of School Safety for the Seminole County Sheriff's Office. He is responsible for the direct oversight of the increasing demands and evolving needs of all aspects of school safety and security here in Seminole County. Captain Ron Shaw is next to him, and Captain is with the Seminole County Sheriff's Office, but holds a very unique role in that he is embedded in the school system as our Director of Safety, School Safety for SCPS. So his office is on the 4th floor there in the Education Support Center, along with all of our other district representatives, and he is 100% committed to the school safety of the students in Seminole County Public Schools. Next to Chief is Mr. Young, Stephen Young, who is the president of the Seminole County Council PTA. And next to Mr. Young is Ms. Asia Smith, who is a licensed social worker and program specialist for Seminole County Public Schools. After we have our panel, we'll wrap up the evening with the presentation from Dr. Samir Hindusha. Dr. Hindusha is the co-director of the Cyberbullying Research Center, the editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Bullying Prevention. He is faculty associate of the Berkman Klein Center with Harvard University and a professor of criminology and criminal justice with Florida Atlantic University. He's also a great friend and a graduate of Seminole County Public Schools, and continues to be a great friend to the district. He is going to speak with us on the topic of teens and tech, promoting positive use while preventing abuse. So let's get started. And our first question, we'll start with Chief Francis. Chief, can you provide our audience the history of the relationship between Seminole County Public Schools and the Sheriff's Office for Seminole County in the role of school safety?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming. I appreciate it very much. We are responsible for our most vulnerable, and we take that responsibility very seriously. The Sheriff's Office has been involved with school safety for many years, but I'm going to highlight our direct involvement being ultimately responsible. The former superintendent, Walt Griffin, was a very passionate leader and a visionary, and he asked our former sheriff, Don Esslinger, if he'd be interested in assuming the ultimate responsibility of school safety. And Dr. Griffin's vision was, he was an educator by trade, and he did not feel that his expertise were better suited for school safety. Plus, he was dealing with not only sheriff's office, but several municipalities that had an interest in keeping our schools safe. So in 2015, the superintendent reached out to the sheriff. The sheriff said, absolutely, we'd be very interested in that. And a few hours later, I was in front of him getting an assignment this would be my responsibility. So I picked up my laptop and moved over to the educational support building. And I think it's important to recognize that that was back in 2015, long before we started having all these school safety laws after Marjorie Stoneman Douglas incident just a few hours south of us. The person who had the responsibility of school safety prior to me was a civilian, and again, nothing wrong with that, but we came in with a clean slate and was able to start bringing some sweeping changes to the school safety in Seminole County. One of the first things we did was add a school officer and deputy to every single campus, and the larger campuses, middle school, high school, now have multiple. I assume that role as the school safety director. Now Captain Shaw handles that role for me. And we started looking at school safety technology, school hardening, and many other factors when it comes to keeping a school safe. Interesting enough, after Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, 3 weeks later, the state of Florida came through with some very sweeping school safety laws. And one of them was having a person solely responsible for school safety, which we already had. And then several other things like threat management, how we handle the school safety as far as our perimeters, fencing, and access controls, and several other aspects of that school safety law. The nice thing about it is when that ink dried in Tallahassee, we were already compliant day one. Just because we had some vision, we had some direction, and then, we also spent a lot of time training not only our staff at the school district, but also our officers and deputies for that role. So it's not a clap on the back or anything like that. We're not looking for praise, but we just had the vision and the direction that we wanted to keep our schools safe, and that safety came from starting with me and making sure that my staff understood that we are responsible for most vulnerable. And that is something we take very, very seriously. For us, it's a 24/7 job. Our phones usually go off quiet until about 7 o'clock in the morning, and then they end usually about 9 or 10 o'clock at night, dealing with certain aspects of school safety and security. But as we transitioned there, we started adding more robust, advanced technology when it came to school safety and other practices to keep our schools safe.
Thank you, Chief. The next question is for Captain Shaw, and it's a question that came directly from a parent. And here's the question: does having a designated SRO or SRD in each school make the school safer? And could you detail the specialized training that Seminole County's SRDs and SROs receive?
Yes, ma'am. Can you all hear me? So absolutely, having a dedicated and well-trained school resource officer or school resource deputy in each school is a definite advantage. We're fortunate in Seminole County that we have a good relationship with our municipalities where it's a force multiplier for us because they see a lot of them, Lake Mary, Sanford, Longwood, and Oviedo have responsibilities of schools inside the city, some of them, and then we take the rest of them, but overall, it's still responsible for all the schools, but we have such a great working relationship, and you don't see that in all the counties. I'd like to just mention that Seminole County is one of the few counties where we all share the same report writing system. So whether you work in Lake Mary, or you work in Sanford, or you work at the sheriff's office, we all can see each other's reports, and we're all in that same report writing system, so it's a tool for us. If something happens with a child in Lake Mary, the officer in Longwood and Oviedo can see that. It's a weapon for us to use for intelligence, and it just makes us, I never say makes us safe, but it sure makes us safer. Having a well-trained officer or deputy doesn't make you safe, but it makes us safer. And just to highlight that, here's some of the training that they go through. First, they go through a basic academy, which is 770 hours. It's about six months just to become a deputy sheriff or a police officer. After the academy, then it's a 3 to 4 month training period. Here at School Safety, we don't take anybody unless they have prior experience until they've at least done a year in SCP or Road Patrol. So, and then after that, they have what we call basic school resource officer training, active threat training, stop and bleed training, instructor techniques, crisis intervention, youth mental health, first aid, trauma-informed care, autism and exceptional student education awareness, which you won't see in many other counties but this one, bullying prevention, de-escalation. These two, there's actually books to go along with it, and the district requires all the staff to read those books. Any tester too, so you can't just say you read it. We have, we do tactical training, close quarter drills, threat assessment and management, which we'll talk a little bit later. I'd like to mention threat assessment and management just because we do it so much different here and better, and we'll talk about it later in more detail. But Sergeant Jackson, if you don't mind, raise your hand. It's here, to my right, your left. She serves the purpose of the district, and that's what her full-time job is. She's dedicated solely to addressing concerning behaviors and threats. We train on small and large-scale family reunification, K-12, school safety curriculum. We have a school-based CEPTED. CEPTED is crime prevention through environmental design. Basically, in a community, if you have a park where there's always crime happening because there's low lightage, we put lights up. There's a lot of thefts at a particular place, we put a fence up. We use the same kind of philosophy in school safety, and we train all our deputies to recognize those things, to make our schools just more harder, and again, safer. Mass communication, soft panic button. We have a system called Raptor, that if something were to happen, it's just a push of a button. Not only do you just push the button, it alerts everybody, including the cabinet and law enforcement, but it also means you can tell exactly what's going on. That's at a push of a button. Safe school site assessment, culture diverse discriminatory policing training, school safety 101, critical incident response, juvenile legal diversion programs, rescue task force, school discipline. We have a contractual in state laws and expectations that all school resource deputies and officers are aware of. With cybersecurity, it goes on and on. With incident and unified command, which even myself, I'm going through that training again this week, just to make sure you stay fresh because it's a perishable skill. And one of the teachers, one of the superintendents asked me about it, and I said it's just been a humbling experience. But that's just the kind of dedication we have to make sure that our kids are safe.
Francis and Captain Shaw, and also as Ms. Smith to join in here. We receive a lot of questions from parents about school safety measures. How do we balance the increase of security in an environment made for children? We'll start with Chief.
Thank you. First of all, a great question. I want to also, before I move on, to highlight that our superintendent and also Sheriff Dennis Lehman has continued on with the spirit of our 2015 initiatives and stuff like that to keep us in our schools and continue on with school safety and security. So we've asked constantly. I travel around the United States talking about school safety, and we get parents and sometimes, usually after incidents that happen across the U.S., we usually get some calls, which as a parent myself and all of us parents sitting on this panel, recognize and understand. And back in 2015-16, we really didn't talk a lot about what we did because a lot of this stuff is protected information, and we kept it kind of underneath our collars a little bit. But as things occur like Marjorie Stoneman Douglas incident, we found ourselves having to talk more and more about school safety and security. And I've constantly asked, what makes a school safe? And it is not, although we do school hardening, your fencing, your access control, I think you've been to our schools, the buzzing system, and all those other things that are going on, advanced weapon detection and stuff like that. Those things are important, but that's not what makes a school safe. What makes a school safe is the culture, climate of that school. If a kid feels part of that fabric of that school, it's very, very unlikely that they're going to create havoc and have these mass casualty incidents. Kids don't wake up on a Monday and say, you know what, I'm going to be an active shooter that day. It's not how it works. There's a pathway of violence, and it's our job to make sure that we recognize the concerning behaviors of those threats and deal with them accordingly. So I operate on an 80-20 rule, and 80% of our efforts is spent in what I consider those soft things, so threat assessment and management, those bullying, self-harm, etc. Those are the things what really makes a school safe. And I think it's important to also recognize that we have done a lot of extra things, as the captain mentioned several school safety trainings that we do. I assure you, there is not another school resource program in the state of Florida, and probably beyond, that offers or demands as much training as our folks go through. It's not that we're trying to make them, SWAT warriors or anything like that. It's that we want them to be a part of that school, and if the God forbid happens, that we're ready to respond. But again, we want to spend most of our time being part of that school's fabric. We've also added things like that you're seeing, especially at the primary level. We've done comfort dogs and other safety things to help not only with the school safety in itself, but that culture and climate within that school district.
And yes, and adding on to that culture and climate point, that's why we have supported roles, student support services always also integrated into the school campus. We want to make sure that we are able to serve in a dual purpose, not just with our staffing of having mental health professionals present on campus, but also to increase the likelihood that a student may feel safe on campus to receive that support. We'll get into in a little bit more detail when it talks about the pathway to violence, but it never starts at the end. We see indicators. We see that there's a need on a campus, even when it comes to just having a welcoming environment. So our front office staff members, making sure that they're present and greeting our students in a positive manner, making sure that we're always visible, making sure that we're aware. And I always like to think about the safety measures that we have on a campus. I've worked in inpatient facilities, I've worked in DJJ, I've seen what an inpatient locked facility should look like, and that's not what our schools should look like. We should make sure that our campuses are welcoming, safe, and engaging for our students, even just from the outside, our walls, our doors, how we decorate, and they can also serve a dual purpose if and when there is a concern or a threat on the campus. And I also like to point out that even with the presence of law enforcement on a campus, it's nice to know that they're there, but it's also nice to know that they're integrated so much into how we interact with one another, how much that the students love engaging with them, how the students know that they have a safe person that is going to put themselves on the line to protect us. But they're integrated into the fabric so much that it's almost like they're part of the staff. So knowing that they're present, that's the best way that I feel like our students can be safe, but not feel as though that we're dealing with a lockdown facility, locked doors, locked windows, because that's not how students can feel engaged and welcomed onto our campus. And I think that's something that Seminole County Public Schools has balanced quite well.
And we'll start with Captain Shaw and ask also Ms. Smith to join in here. Can you talk to our audience about the process that that takes place when a threat or concerning behavior is identified on a school campus, and then how that is monitored once it's identified?
So I can start. The Florida model, something that's happened very uniquely here in the state of Florida is that we started to integrate the Florida model of our threat management process. So we started to notice, I would say right after, Marjorie Stone Douglas, that we needed an enhanced measure of how we identified what a concerning behavior was, how do we assist those students, and how do we increase the support so we don't have an increased likelihood or a risk of it happening again. And I love the way that we manage that here in the state of Florida, specifically with Seminole County Public Schools, because we don't only focus on the target or a victim, but we also want to focus on our students that may be the aggressor, because they're still our students. They still need support. We want to make sure that they feel safe enough to receive that support, and then also that we monitor that behavior over a prolonged period of time. So we have a team on every campus that is integrated with key components, key stakeholders, I would say, that we call the Core Four. So the Core Four represents a position that has to be present on the campus to act on that specialized team. So it's going to be someone from an administrative role, it's going to be someone from law enforcement, it's going to be someone from an instructional staff standpoint, and also from someone from a mental health background. And we all work together, starting with our chair when they receive information about a concerning behavior or a potential threat on the campus. We want to start with at least having the conversation. Is this something to be concerned about? Do we need to pull the key members of that team together so we can have that multidisciplinary team meeting, dive into a little bit deeper of what has occurred, what information we've received, talk about the protective factors, talk about the risk factors, and then we're going to determine, again, do we have a level of concern that we now need to address? And then further planning of support. So most of the concerns that we receive are going to be unfounded. Again, teaching our students how to speak nicely to one another, how to use correct language on a school campus, things that are going to be developmentally appropriate for their age. We're going to be able to make sure that they're aware We're gonna make sure that they get contact with a support member on our school campus, and then we're also communicating with our parents and guardians that something has occurred that is concerning, but it did not rise to the level that we have to increase that level of support, such as moving to a low level of concern. Low levels of concern is still a concern, but we have a lot more maybe protective factors in place. Maybe we just need to, again, put eyes on, make sure that we have a safer conversation, and we have 90 days that we can monitor that student to make sure that nothing further escalates. Then we move on to a medium level of concern, where we may have a higher level of risk factors that are present. We do need to be able to increase the days of support that we're going to monitor that student, and we possibly maybe even build in a student support management plan to be able to say that we are going to now refer them for specialized services. We are going to make sure that we're able to make referrals for resources that can also be integrated into the home, because we like to link home and school together, because we have to be able to do this together. And we can do that for 180 days to be able to offer that management plan with the potential to extend it if and when needed. And then when we have high levels of concern, that's a student that we definitely have maybe a lower level of protective factors, so things that may be able to, we can rely on to assist that student. Could be peer support, more support in the home. Maybe that's lax. Maybe there are some deficits in those areas. So we want to be able to make sure that we can monitor these students for a full calendar year. That's not just for the school year. So we're supporting these students even through the summer break. We want to make sure that they know that they can call upon us here at the school, because we're still open and operating. Even though we don't have summer school, we still have people on staff. We want to make sure that we're also partnering with law enforcement to make sure that they're also present and integrated into that conversation. But we're doing wraparound care, comprehensive, individualized plans of supports for that student and that family, because it can be very difficult for a family to know that this has occurred. We have a high risk, we have a concern on that has taken place, and it's very daunting for a parent or guardian to feel that they need support too, because sometimes it is a shock to get that phone call that something to this level has occurred. So we're very aware that we want to be able to partner with you as well to make sure that, again, your student gets support, your child gets the help that they need, and then they can continue to attend our schools and feel safe.
Okay, well, thank you. Captain Shaw, can you share the data on school threats for our county for the 23-24 school year, but then also the year-to-date number of threats for our current school year?
I think I'll handle that. So you should be able to see right now, I'm going to kind of break down. There's, of course, we get threats is a pretty generic term. They can come in through our app or anonymous tip reporting systems, Speak Out, Fortify. They can come, a child can come to a trusted adult. So there's many different ways that this occurs and comes up. And of course, we always get asked how many numbers you have, stuff like that. And it's never concerning the numbers for me, because that's what we expect. If a child or adult feels something is unsafe or there are concerning behaviors, then we want to know about it. And to Ms. Smith's point, once we engage these individuals and offer services, this wraparound services, we very rarely have repeat customers. But to the point of, for the 2023-24 school year, for elementary level, we had 375, middle 240, high school 53, and alternative schools 16, for a total of 684. And again, those could be either self-harm, a school threat, concerning behavior, or what we consider non-actionable. And a non-actionable could be simply a kid just going on the website, doing keystrokes. It comes in as nothing, and it's not actionable. And year-to-date, these numbers are about a week stale now, but elementary is at 231, middle 103, high 48, and our alternatives 11, for a total of 393. And we're tracking about a 40% increase compared to last year, but pre-COVID, we're tracking about the same. And again, for us, it's not a big concern of the numbers. It's concerning when we start to get a whole bunch of medium to highs. Thankfully, since 2015, and we brought in the threat assessment model. We had it, I designed it off the Secret Service, FBI, Department of Homeland Security, kind of like a hybrid approach. We actually built our own dashboard and system. We were using Google Docs for a little while, and we crashed that system, and we had some code writers from the school district who finally wrote code for us that have robust, and it makes it really nice because it gives the staff in the schools checkpoints to make sure this is done, that's done, And for us, what happens at the school level is being duplicated at the district level. We have a district care team, which the executives for the level sits on, chaired by our sergeant, who looks at all these threats that are coming in a little bit higher or concerning to us to make sure that we're not missing anything. And that's what her sole responsibility is every day, is to make sure that every threat that comes in, no matter what time of night it comes in or day, it's being addressed accordingly.
And if a student, parent, or community member has a concern about a potential threat to one of our schools, and you all share how they can report that threat so that we can then act.
Well, we're blessed to have two options. We have Fortify Florida, which is a tip line that's sponsored by the state. And if you walked in, you saw the Speak Out or Crime Line people out in your lobby, and they're partnering with us as well. We're required by statute to have the Fortify Florida. There'll be stickers all around the campus itself. There'll be stickers around Speak Out around the campus itself. They can also access it electronically on all their websites. You see Speak Out, and you also see Fortify Florida. So if they don't feel comfortable, which I hope they do, talking to an adult or a teacher or a staff member, there's always those tips they have, and not just for the students, they're available for the parents as well.
One thing that I want to stress when it comes to tips, and we've had this occurrence happen, and where something's, the biggest one I can remember was a threat that came in that's originated in Georgia, made its way to our high schools, and pretty much one particular high school, there's like 1,700 kids in that day that said the threat was going to happen. There was about 40 kids on that campus. I assure you, as the day is long, if every threat that comes in, we are working until we can minimize it or completely close it out as unfounded. There is no threat. And when we say the school district or the principal or whatever the case may be says that we have vetted this threat and there's nothing to it, please send your child to school. Because I assure you, no matter if we have zero concern, we are still doing things behind the scenes to make sure that school has an extra few layers of security, some stuff that you can see, some stuff you can't see. So once we've vetted these threats out and we have deemed them not credible, please send your kids to school.
And to add on to that, how we integrate and balance law enforcement in our school discipline policy is that we do follow a code of conduct first. So I know there's some questions that I receive because I do have students on my caseload that may have some behavioral challenges, that also may have mental health challenges. And sometimes the concern arises, well, how do we integrate law enforcement because they're present on our campus? We have a code of conduct that we follow. Our SCPS staff handles the code of conduct. Yes, there are going to be some infractions that do rise to the level where we do have to make a referral to law enforcement, and again, that's for safety reasons, of course, when things become dire or most severe, and there is a safety threat on campus, but that is a very small percentage of the incidents that occur. For the most part, they're going to be handled by our administration, and definitely I want to point out when it comes to the de-escalation and the involvement of mental health, I don't just treat me as a licensed clinical social worker. Our teams, we have district mental health counselors, school psychologists also in the audience too. We are heavily integrated to also assist when we are having behavioral challenges because we don't want our students to always receive a consequence if it's a matter of we're having a bad day. We're not using great coping skills. We need some de-escalation on present. We are having, again, maybe some response in a traumatic way or an incident that may have occurred and that's not even related to the school campus. We want to be able to activate those areas as best we can in order to prevent the escalation or violation of our code of conduct. So there's so many levels that we try to integrate within this campus to be able to assist our students, even when it comes to, again, our school discipline measures.
Thank you.
Superintendent,
Yes.
if I can just add, I just want to make sure we cover this, that when we talk about tips, Fortify or Speak Out, or whether they generate through their own on a computer or it's important to understand that juveniles often think that they can operate with impunity, and that's just not the case, especially as it comes to school threats. So I just want to make it abundantly clear that threats are handled seriously here. Chief already talked about how seriously we take them, and we investigate every threat. We're knocking on doors at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes to vet threats and make sure that your kids are going to be safe. But they also have to be held accountable when they do things that are contrary to that. So it's just basically, it's unlawful for any person to send, post, or transmit, or procedure is sending, posting, or transmission of a writing or the record, including any electronic record in any manner in which it may be viewed by any other person. When in such writing or record, a person makes a threat to kill or do bodily harm to another person or conduct a mass shooting or any act of terrorism. Just want to make sure you point that out.
Thank you, Captain. And this next question, I am going to ask Mr. Young to jump in. And I just want to, first of all, thank you, Mr. Young, for being a part of this panel, but also thank you for reaching out to me on behalf of all parents to say, as we were moving through the events in September, that this was something that was needed so that our parents would understand how we operate, the resources we have, and that they can have their questions answered. So thank you for reaching out, and I will ask you to answer this next question, if you would. It's, do you believe that mental health programs, both funding and support, are essential in preventing school violence and promoting student safety?
Yes, with the resounding yes, mental health programs are indeed vital for fostering safe school environments. And one thing I want to note here as well, the PTA, right? And how can you parents get involved and help with law enforcement, right? And help with the school district. So let me briefly just mention, PTA's mission is to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children, which is what we're doing here tonight. Just so you all know, the National PTA is the largest and oldest child advocacy group association in the United States. It comprises of millions of families, students, teachers, administrators, business and community leaders devoted to educational success of children and the promotion of parent involvement in schools. PTA is a registered 501c3 nonprofit association that prides itself on being a powerful voice for all children, a relevant resource for families, communities, and a strong advocate for public education. Membership in the PTA is open for everyone who wants to be involved and make a difference. So please join your local PTA at your children's school. So to get back to answering the question, the answer is yes, but PTA has a Healthy Minds initiative that emphasizes that access to mental health resources that support students' emotional well-being and helps prevent issues that can escalate into violence. The PTA advocates for increased mental health funding, providing support for school counselors, and training for teachers to recognize and address emotional struggles early on. Studies shared by the PTA show that schools with robust mental health programs see improvements in student safety and reductions in behavioral issues, highlighting that funding these resources is essential for building resilient, secure school communities, as we've been alluding to tonight. So for more information on the mental health pact, the mental health's impact on safety and well-being, you parents, right? Parents, all of us here, and community leaders, you can explore under PTA's Healthy Minds section on pta.org. So I challenge you to go to the website.
Thank you, Mr. Young. And Ms. Smith, can you share how the district has improved its capacity to address mental health issues in our schools and the types of mental health and behavior resources that are available to our students in our schools?
Yes, so Seminole County Public Schools has invested heavily into mental health support on our campus. We've seen an increase when it comes to traumatic incidences that our students encounter, even outside of the school setting. And we also want to see the reality of it is that we have to understand the dynamics that our students are facing as well. Food scarcity can be stressful and traumatic to our students. Homelessness, unstable housing can be stressful and traumatic to our students. And again, most of all, just social development. Social development is not something that automatically happens to where we don't have to groom and make sure that our students understand that there's healthy development, there's coping skills that we want to teach them that are healthy. We want to make sure that they're not developing maladaptive skills that are going to be a hindrance. and also not going to be conducive as they're learning to grow and interact with their society. So even when it comes to just healthy development, social skills that we are trying to teach our students, this is the environment that mimics, again, society. So we want to be able to have that integrated into our school day. With the Intervention Services Department, we have 3 key teams that handle mental health services of support on our school campus in conjunction with our certified school counselors, and work hand in hand with our teachers in the classroom. So we have our district mental health counselors that are licensed mental health clinicians, from licensed marriage and family therapists, licensed mental health counselors, licensed clinical social workers, where all they do on the campus is provide mental health by consent. So they are deeply invested in providing that formal service on the campus with your children. Then they have my position. I oversee the school social workers for our division, and we think of ourselves as being able to do a holistic approach. So we're not only providing case management, we're not only providing resources of support, but making sure that we're able to bridge that home and school environments together. So we want to make sure that not only are we providing mental health support, but if there is a barrier at home, if something traumatic has happened and you want to have a safe person that's going to respect your privacy, but also work in conjunction with you if there's a death in the family. Again, if there's housing instability, if something has occurred that is going to disrupt your child's day and you just want to make sure they're able to get to the end of the day safely and they have a safe person on campus, you have that available as well. And then we have our school psychologists. Not only do they offer a heavy need of behavior support, but they also help with testing and evaluation for our students when we're a little concerned that there may be a learning disability present, or we do need to start providing ESC services. We have that as well. And we have that in numbers. We have a significant opportunity, not only through state funding, but also federal funding, to increase that support so we have full-time providers on the campus, multiple providers at one time, on your campus every day of the week that can offer these services. We can do it by direct referral, even you just calling and saying, hey, this occurred in my household, this occurred in my neighborhood, I'm worried about my child, can someone check on them? It can be, again, us noticing some symptoms that we have to start developing a support plan. It could be through our MTSS, our multi-tiered systems of support, where we're doing multi-week interventions of support in that area of behavior and mental health. And then again, wraparound care. If you know you need something in the home, you can call and ask for your social worker. You can call and ask for your certified school counselor, just to say, hey, this is happening. Do you have any resources that may be able to assist me? Something that you can refer me to. Also, do you have this service just offered on your school campus? Food pantries. That's something that we can offer on your campus. I even have schools that, again, if there is a barrier, such as just having clean clothing, I have had social workers washing clothes on the campus if that's a need, because we're truly, truly dedicated to making sure that we can see your students as much as possible every single day, but knowing that there is a link that we care and we want to make sure that you are getting everything that you need and your students feel supported on our campus.
Thank you. And Ms. Smith and Mr. Young, I think I'd love to hear your thoughts on this next question. With the influx of non-credible threats, how do parents support their children in maintaining a healthy sense of concern without eroding their sense of safety?
Yes, so the PTA emphasizes creating an open, honest, and developmentally appropriate conversations. So like, for example, I can take myself, right? Picking my kids up from the bus stop, that's an opportunity. Walking to the bus stop, that's an opportunity. Picking them up from clubs, that's an opportunity. That's a great time for you as parents to simply ask, how was your day today? Oh, it was good. Well, what about it was good? Right? So really press in, ask those questions, understand your child and what their needs are, and be open, right? Be open to whatever answers that they provide, and be calm. And so with that being said, if you struggle with that, well, guess what? There's a resource for that. Can we say resources? There's a resource. So PTA has social and emotional learning resources that state, and this is to help back you up, give you that confidence if you feel like you don't have it, maintaining a calm and reassuring approach while acknowledging concerns. That can help your children feel secure. You can emphasize the safety protocols in place in school, which we've talked about tonight, right? Talking about that, openly talking about it. How do you feel about it? What do you think about it? Right? That can help reinforce their confidence. And also there's resources that are available on stress management and mindfulness that can be beneficial in helping your children process and navigate any anxiety that they may have at school safety. So we clearly heard tonight that there are resources available, right, on both sides, at the district level and with law enforcement. But it starts with us at home, parents. And so with that being said, you're not on an island. You're not alone. The PTA is here. You have an opportunity to join. You don't have to be super active, right? You can simply, wherever your time and talent is, you feel like is best suited, you have the opportunity to make a difference in your child's life. And you see that ripple effect when you all are involved, whether it's your child or the caregiver, it has an effect throughout the entire system here. So it's very important and very vital that you all play a part in that. You are important. I don't know if you all heard that today, right? But you all are important. You make a difference. And I just wanted to let you all know that because it does matter. Even though sometimes it may feel that it doesn't, it does make a huge difference, not only in your child's life, but the children of other, people as well. So, I'll pass it.
No, that's perfect, because I think in order to piggyback off of your response, the partnership that we have with you is vital. I can teach a child all day about social skills. I can tell them to use those strategies, but it's even more enhanced and encouraged when I know they're receiving that same message at home. Talking to your children and letting them know not only the expectations that you wish them to abide by, but encouraging them to seek out support if they're having challenges. Find that safe person, find the safe people, because I never want it to be just my social workers on the campus that a child feels safe with. We want to build a sense of community, but also validating the concerns that they have. So if they feel that, hey, I don't feel comfortable in this classroom, or I'm sitting next to someone that I don't like, they're bothering me, that can be a hindrance not only with school achievement when it comes to academic areas, but it also can be a hindrance when we start talking about school attendance. So again, making sure that you're having that open dialogue with your child at home, not just about the expectations, just open-ended questions about how was your day. And I know when we have teenagers, you always get that one-worded answer, it's fine, I didn't do anything today, nothing special happened today. And you're like, you spent 7 hours there. So change your sense of questioning. And if you need help with that, we're here. We have conversation starters. We can offer that support to you as well, so you know how to navigate some of those more stressful developmental times of preteens and teenage years. But most importantly, we want to be able to make sure that you have that resource to support to guide that conversation even at home, and not just think that, hey, we can do it alone, because we can't. We always know that it takes a village to raise a child, so making sure that we can always enhance that relationship together so they know that school is safe, they know that that's the expectation for them to come to school every day to receive their education, but also to learn and grow together and develop healthy relationships with their peers as well as their teachers.
Well, thank you all. Thank you to all of our panelists this evening. I want parents to know that they will all be available for questions at the tables on the outside that you saw coming in after Dr. Hinduja. But our next question really kind of is a perfect segue into Dr. Hinduja's presentation. And that question, and this came from parents, how can parents and caregivers monitor online behavior without crossing privacy boundaries? So I know that Dr. Hinduja will be happy to address that question as well as many others in his presentation on promoting positive tech use while preventing abuse. So please, welcome to the stage, Dr. Samir Hinduja.
Testing, there we go. Hello, thank you for your time this evening. I'm sure you've had a long day. I get that. I want this time together to be valuable. So I think we'll dive right in, and then if you need any follow-up, please let me know. I grew up in this area. I went to Redbug, then I went to Tuscola, then I went to Lake Howell. I've had a long relationship with the district. I love coming back. My folks still live here, and so My goal is to, again, just be of service continually, not just tonight. First reminder I'd like to provide is that even though the media likes to blame and demonize technology and social media as the primary cause of the loneliness epidemic and mental health crisis we're seeing in our nation, I hope that you understand that it's a lot more complicated than that. Can't just point to one specific factor in our kids' lives when there's so many other factors that are affecting them. And we know that they've dealt with atypical stressors over the last 5 years when you're thinking about political polarization, when you're thinking about economic instability, when you're thinking about COVID and health scares and fears. Academic pressures have always been way up there on the list, as well in terms of what they're feeling, what's on their shoulders. And so technology, it's a positive, but it's also a negative. It's a tool. We want them to embrace it, and I think they need to embrace it. I think they need to grow in proficiency and a level of comfort with platforms. Otherwise, I feel like they're going to fall short, and they're not really going to be able to use them to level up both personally and professionally. My point with that is that it's easy to sort of shame them or blame them or cultivate guilt as it relates to their technology use and social media use, but I don't think that's productive at all. And it's going to reduce their likelihood that they're going to come to you if something ever goes sideways online, or if they receive a message that makes them feel a little bit weird. They won't want to come to you because they're very nervous that you're going to take away their phone and take away their access. It's not really worth that risk to them. So thinking about some of the harms that we're looking at, and of course we try to collect data every year. This is from last year, and so just a few data points that I wanted to share with you that pop, but I'm happy to give you these slides if you want to pore over them in more detail. The first is that a good number of youth were targeted with comments with a sexual meaning, and so that makes me think about sexual harassment, and I wouldn't want an adult, let alone a teenager or a child, to have to deal with that, but yet we are seeing that online. We're also seeing issues related to race and color and religion. And so we've heard that targeting someone based on an identity-based characteristic, such as race or gender or religion, could be characterized as a hate crime, depending on the jurisdiction and the specifics involved. My hope is that we're having conversations with our kids about how you want to stay far away from that line. Maybe you want to make your buddies laugh, maybe you want to trivialize it as banter, but it is not. It is a big deal when you mouth off and you use certain terms or language or attack people, again, based on characteristics about themselves that they cannot change based on who they are. A couple other points that, again, just struck me as interesting that I would want on your radar, and that is we've got 20+% of youth who say that someone repeatedly contacted them via text or online. Here we have 14% or so, someone stopped me online, and here about 10% said that someone tracked or monitored my locations or activities after I told them to stop. Here's my point. As these years have gone by, it feels like we all trivialize the notion of stalking someone, whether it's a prospective romantic partner or a boss or something like that, and I understand the benefits of that on some level, gathering information about them so you can make educated decisions about continuing in a relationship with them or pursuing an opportunity. But I also feel like it's disarmed youth to be a little bit controlling, a little bit too involved in other people's lives. And it leads to feelings of fear and a lack of safety when these youth cross the line as it relates to using technology to track or stalk or intimidate or engage in passive aggressiveness or power or control. So these words that I'm using, they are pretty heavy, but these behaviors, when you're on the receiving end of them, they're pretty intimidating. They definitely take a toll. So who are you talking to? We see that about 7 out of 10 are talking to a parent, which is great, but you and I would love to see those numbers a lot closer to 100%. And I'm probably preaching to the choir because you're here, and I love that you brought your child with you as well. And so you care deeply about this. Try to get other parents more involved in a variety of ways. We'll talk about what that looks like in a second. I do have some discouraging news, though. When it comes to talking to school counselors or teachers or principals or assistant principals, someone else at school, even though we have brought this up until we're blue in the face for years and years, well over a decade, please come to us here at school. Please come, give us a chance. Let us know what's going on. We can't read your mind. Help us help you. these proportions have stayed pretty low over the course of these years. And that's so frustrating. But all we can do is continue to be present, be involved, let them know that we care about them, and then hopefully when the opportunity presents, they will say, I can go to Mrs. So-and-so or Dr. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so, whoever. It's like, I can go to them, I can give them a chance. That's our hope. I'd love for those numbers to be higher. So let's get into strategies and solutions. This was mentioned earlier by Stephen, and communication is such a big deal. We get that, but it also sometimes feels like adults just go ahead and buy the device, whether it's the new VR headset this holiday season, or whether it's they eventually relent and say, okay, you can be on this app, but there's no real instruction associated with it. Now, maybe you'll agree with me when I say apps, platforms, they have a role to play. I wish that there was a formal onboarding system for the dyad of a parent and a child. Together, they become familiar with the app and the safety mechanisms and controls and features and whatever supervision is provided to the parent when that child is on the app. I would love for there to be that formal process. And I believe we're going to start seeing that more and more down the pike. About a month ago, Instagram released teen accounts it involves, forced private accounts for kids 15 years of age and younger, and parents to set up a supervision account as well. So it's going to be mandated, I think, more often. But we have to continue to communicate about these issues, and ideally, you're co-using. You've heard that term, where you sit down together with the tablet or with the phone, and you demonstrate interest in the games that they love. And maybe it's foreign to you, and you're not truly, sincerely interested, but you just sort of pretend, and you care about what they care about because you love them. And so be involved and start early, and then when you and I are irritable or cranky, sometimes we mess up and we say the wrong thing, or we're rude, or we're curt. We just have to call it out and be like, oh, son, daughter, I'm so sorry. I keep telling you about the golden rule. I need to live by the golden rule as well, and in that moment, I did not. But there's no excuse for that, and I need to make things right. So you shall remember that, yeah, it's okay to be human and mess up, but we do the right things. We restore equilibrium. And then also, I'm big on family standards, and so you have talked to your kids about, what is expected in your household. And hopefully you reinforce that in a variety of ways, not through preaching and lecturing, but through storytelling and examples as experience evolve in your kids' relationships with others. But we created this formal, visible sign, which we keep in our family room. And it took a little while for us to figure out, okay, what are the foundational values we're going to build our family upon? We settled on these. My kids are young, but as life occurs to them, I'm able to point to, yeah, you know what? You can't be amazing at everything. And even if you're good in this area, I'd like you to keep your mouth shut and just be humble about it. And then let others sort of lift you up in due time. I also tell them about courage. It's like people might be talking bad things about you, but you stay true to who you are. That takes a lot of courage, and it's going to be hard, but I'm here to support you, and that skill that you develop right now in terms of demonstrating that courage, I promise you, it'll be so valuable down the road. So we're going to keep practicing, even when it's hard, and I'm here to support you. So keep coming back to those values, I think is really important, simply because life is like this, right? Our emotions are like this, and maybe like this when you're a teenager. They're so variable, and I get that. I face that. I felt that. So coming back to our values, though, gives us a North Star, right? Otherwise, we just get lost in the heavy fog of the emotions. So perhaps you can make a visible, permanent sort of sign to remind them what we're all about. Because when I don't know what to do, what keeps me going in the right direction? One thing is that I think about Frozen 2, and Anna, there's a song called The Next Right Thing, and I think about doing the next right thing. But secondly, I think about the sign, and I think about how I need to stay true to who I want to be. And the fact that I am an influencer, not on social media, but to my kids and to people who see me. And then when it comes to conversations, this was also brought up by the previous panel, when you're chatting with them, whether it's on the way to the bus stop or dropping them off to soccer practice, I would like you to lean in the direction of being much more positive with your questions. Instead of always having an angle to sort of like zap them with that teachable moment, no, just be chill and just ask them, what are you loving these days? What's bringing you joy? Do you think that you have an idea for the next disruptive app? Do you think that the metaverse is ever going to really take off? Those sorts of things, just like exciting questions about tech and how it's meeting their needs. And I think that goes a really long way to you demonstrating that you care about what they care about, what the entire youth culture, Gen Alpha, is all about. And then over time, not just immediately after this presentation tonight, but over time, you can ask the more probing, the more sensitive questions to really get into those delicate topics. And ideally, if you've built that relationship over the course of weeks and months, they will be a little bit more candid with you and open up to you because they know you're not going to freak out. You've demonstrated that you're pro-technology. I'd also love for you to have a judgment-free room in your home. It's like you're having a conversation or something did go sideways or you heard some stories from parent friends and they told you like what's evolving in a group chat or what's happening on a specific platform. You could be like, I heard some things and let's go over here to the kitchen because that's our judgment-free zone. And whenever we talk about some sort of serious topic, I'm not going to judge you because we're in the judgment-free zone and I just want to hear your thoughts. And if there's an issue, maybe we could work together on some sort of mutually agreeable game plan for how to proceed. But here in the judgment-free zone, I just want to hear what's going on. Because I love you, and I'm here to support you in any way that I can. I also want you to remind them when things are difficult, that now is not forever. And we remember middle school, and we remember high school, and it felt like, the massive pimple on your forehead was going to last forever, and no one was ever going to look at you the same way. And it's the same thing with like social relationships that, have issues and kind of blow up, or, you get stabbed in the back by a friend, and it's like, these walls are closing in, and my life is going to forever be awful. But that's not the truth. And time goes on, and you have a very long runway if you can just sort of sometimes survive and endure this day or this week, And we don't want kids, big picture, to survive or endure elementary or middle school or high school. That is not our goal at all. In fact, our goal is that they thrive and that we build school climates marked by belongingness and culture and climate and all these elements of climate connectedness, that sort of thing, where they're like, yes, I do want to come to school. And yes, it is hard some days, but I do want to come to school. But just get them to remember that now is not forever. And then when I was growing up, I really felt like I had a ton under my control. Like if I just wore the right clothes, or if I just used the right slang, or if I just, watched SportsCenter in the morning before I came to school and I'd be able to talk to my friends about the highlights, then I would be cool, then I would be liked, then I would be loved. The reality is that we don't have a lot under our control. We just don't, There's always going to be people who chirp. There's always going to be critics. There's always going to be haters. Plus, who cares? And I know that's very hard. I cared deeply about what my peers thought about me in middle school and high school. But if we can just slowly plant seeds, getting them to understand that even if you're super popular one day, the next day someone could say something and all of a sudden you're canceled. Is it really worth playing that game? No, let's control what we can control, which is focusing on academic achievements, becoming well-rounded, growing in character and integrity, serving others. And then we find out how fulfilling that is when we brighten another person's day. That's what we can control. And then back to values, an activity that I like to do with kids in a school-type setting to help them identify their anchors is where I give them a worksheet with, let's say, 18 values up here, 18 values. You just type into Google, list of values, and it'll spit out tons of these worksheets. And then I say, okay, I want you to circle 5 that you want to be known for. 5 where it's like, okay, you're 14, Samir, I want you to think about the best version of yourself when you're 17 or 20 or 25. What are the values that you want to be known for? This is something that really deeply matters to you and resonates with you. And maybe I want to be all about honesty. I want to be all about, loving people unconditionally. I want to be all about being humble, making sure that I'm not always ever really tooting my own horn. I want to be known for being hopeful, because as you get older, it's so easy to become cynical and burnt out and pessimistic. No, I'm gonna hold on to hope no matter what. So whatever it is, if we can help them identify, let's say 5 core values, then as life continues to evolve in middle school and high school, and when they call you from their dorm room in college, we can keep coming back to these 5 values. These truths. That's what we can control. That's what can serve as, again, our North Star. So thinking about tech use, and I do think about this a lot because it's just so easy to get caught up in it. There's been research done, and when it comes to teenagers, it's about 7 hours of screen time per day. Some of that, of course, is productive, and so we don't want to, dismiss their time on YouTube as being a waste of time, because I've learned so many skills specifically on YouTube, whether it's acoustic guitar riffs or the Rubik's Cube or photography skills. your kids have absolutely as well, including how to solve games, including how to level up and beat the final boss, which again is helping them cognitively as well. But real quick, when you do the math, I just want to say 7 hours a day, 49 hours a week, 2,500 hours a year, that's like 95 days. That is a ton of time, which perhaps could be used in different ways. Not all those hours, but some of those hours. Let's just think about how much time we're spending. And then if a person or a kid has lost control, they have to realize that, they do have a problem. Many kids, when I poll them anonymously, they say, yes, I do realize that I've lost control. And I would love to get back to good, but I just don't know how. And so we've heard about this, like leave it in a different room, leave it, downstairs or wherever, but just far away from you and use something else as an alarm clock, because it's so easy to wake up in the middle of the night and check it, and then stay up and give up sleep and all these different sorts of things, simply because socially and relationally that matters so much to us than sleep as a teenager. And then when we set up the screen time limits, we just have to stick to them. I use Do Not Disturb because I want to have novel, innovative thoughts. I'm a thought leader in my field, and so that's not going to happen if I'm always distracted. I have deleted the most problematic apps. I've deleted X or Twitter. I've deleted TikTok personally only because I struggled with them. So I had to be like, dude, how much time are you just going to scroll? You need to do something about this. And then notifications, maybe as adults, you need all your notifications to be on, but I only have notifications for texts and for phone calls, FaceTime calls, but everything else, like all my social media apps, they don't get pushed to me. Like, oh, someone liked your photo, or someone followed you. Like, I don't care. When I have time to log into one of those apps, then I will see those notifications. We talked about this to the high schoolers today. We had this really amazing, epic youth summit with leaders from all the different high schools come together. Well, I reminded them that if you're scrolling through and you see somebody's post and it doesn't make you feel good about yourself, you should unfollow them. Why would you subject yourself to that? So we want them to just be a little bit more controlled and remember their autonomy. Tech-free zones and minimalistic phones are becoming more and more popular. Happy to chat with you about that offline. And these phones, by the way, you can still install the Kindle app and Duolingo and really do a lot, but they give you as parents a lot more sort of granular monitoring and reports related to kid usage. But they're amazing, and the kids can do a lot with them. And then accountability and rewards also goes a long way. A few other points here. Again, the technology is the tool. We do not want our kids to be the tool. And they have to realize that I don't want to be the tool. I don't want to be the product. I don't want to be used. Yes, I'm going to use them in order to accomplish my hopes and dreams, but I will never let them have control over me. And then, we have this goal in my family related to this book. Like, every year, 1,000 hours outside, together. I'm going to be very honest with you, and we don't even get close to 1,000 hours every year. But it's a goal, right? And so if you just sort of set that as a goal, and let's say come December, you only achieve like 107 hours, that's still 107 hours that maybe you would have never spent outside if you were not intentional about it. So perhaps set a goal for January 2025. And maybe who knows, maybe you'll get close to it. You'll message me later and be like, we actually got to 1,000 hours, and it was the best year ever. And then go on date days, go on date nights with your kid, just to spend time with them. No criticism, no using it as an opportunity to talk to them about hard issues or about lessons you want them to learn. Just love on them. Favorite restaurant, favorite dessert place. When I was listening to the chief and the captain, I was thinking a lot about digital evidence. And so documentation is huge for the school to do investigations and for platforms to get content taken down. When you talk to a kid or a teenager who has been targeted, they say, look, I don't want you to do anything right now except get that account deleted, get that humiliating video pulled down. So we need the documentation in terms of the screenshots, which you all know how to do on your phone, but also the screen recordings, which you can set up in Apple iOS as well as on Android. Screen recordings would be for the TikTok video or the Twitch live stream or for the Instagram reel, etc., etc. And if you don't know how to set that up, I bet your kids know how, and they can help you. But we need the evidence. The first response when you see the harassment or the threat is not to delete it, but to capture the screenshot, capture the screen recording for the purposes of providing law enforcement and the platforms with the evidence that they need. We also think it's a good idea to use our contracts, our tech use contracts, And it's just all about negotiating with your child about what it takes to earn screen time, and also the expectations that you're going to hold them to. But on our contracts are expectations for the parent as well. I will be reasonable. I will not take drastic measures. I will not fly off the handle. I will not unnecessarily invade my child's privacy. And you know your child in terms of their age. As they get older, they want more privacy, and if they haven't violated your trust yet, you should extend that because you wanted the same thing when you were growing up as well. On our website, we also have a lot of scripts showing you how easy it is to have a conversation with your kid about harassment or threats or harm, etc., on various platforms. This is a screenshot related to a conversation on Fortnite, but we have many other apps and platforms covered in this document, which is all free on our website. We also have written a number of scenarios. This involves a very popular game called Overwatch on Xbox Live, and rejection and some really awful thoughts that a child is now feeling after being targeted. My point is that you provide the scenario to your child, not give it to them, but sort of read it out maybe, and then you ask follow-up questions. What the research shows is that your kids, if you ask them, hey, if you're ever harassed, do you know what to do? And they will say, yes, I absolutely know what to do. Please, Mom, I know what to do. Don't worry about it. But then in the moment when they are targeted, they freeze. They get stuck because they've never worked through an action plan in their head about what to do. But using scenarios helps them to then have that action plan and know what to do and what not to do. Who to go to, who can help, what they need to do in response. Have they experienced something similar? And then, of course, you can support what they've done, amend it, provide additional suggestions, etc. Role-playing scenarios, according to the research, very powerful. We've written so many, they're all available on our website. Everyone asks me about software. I have no relationships with these companies. I'm not getting kickbacks, but I've checked out a number of them so I can recommend to you what I really like. One is called Circle, and it's put out by a company called Aura. Previously, the software was owned by Disney, but then they sort of sold it to another company. But it just does a really good job, as you can see on the on the far right screenshot, toggling on and off for Snapchat or TikTok or Discord or whatever your kids are using. But you can set it up on a device level. So your kid's iPad is more locked down than your teenager's laptop or your teenager's phone, whatever it is. The internet is open 24/7 for the parents, but for the youngest kid, it shuts off on their devices at 8 p.m. For the older kid, it shuts off on their devices at 10 p.m. Plus, you get granular reports about usage. There is a monthly fee, but just try it out and see if you like it. I also like Bark when it comes to setting up sensitivity levels where they use AI to identify whether your kid might be being groomed or being harassed or receiving messages of a sexual nature. And so you just have to, again, experiment with the software, set the sensitivity levels, and then see whether or not it serves your needs. My last topic, in just a couple minutes that I have remaining, has to do with generative AI. Your kids have probably experimented with some of these generative AI tools, whether it's ChatGPT or Midjourney to create images, 11 Labs to create audio, and I think there's a lot of positives. This technology is here to stay. You've seen the news reports where these massive tech companies are investing billions of dollars in order to have, compute, in order to have the ability to process all of the inputs that we're typing in every single day and then come up with really nuanced and human-like responses when it comes to what they generate. However, as a college professor and educators in the room, we understand we're super sensitive to ethical violations, plagiarism, cheating, copying and pasting. All of that is unacceptable, and our kids need to know that we are in the know and we have to not allow the tools to be used in that way. So, quick slide from last year. I thought this was really interesting, and I'm sure the percentages have gone up. The last line says, believe it'll be a vital skill to have. Again, this was a year and a half ago, and it was 2 out of 3 kids, 2 out of 3 parents, and 2 out of 3 of the teenagers. Again, the numbers I'm sure have gone up. And you can see how they're using it. Creative tasks, efficiency boosting, even emotional support. And I've done this. I've typed into one of these bots various sorts of questions to just make myself feel better. It might be a little bit weird, but I know that the bot is not judging me, so sure. I'm also using these bots for medical advice, which is probably not a good idea, but I'm getting informed in certain ways, and then I will bring that to my doctors. And they'll be like, did you use generative AI to learn that? And I'm like, yes, but you tell me your professional opinion now. So, generative AI got on our radar back in February of this year as it related to Taylor Swift and certain images, inappropriate images, that were created about her and then shared. And so we think, okay, that's happening out there to adults. Unfortunately, though, it's happening amongst teens as well. We've had arrests in South Florida related to this, and in many other states, Texas, New Jersey, Georgia, etc. And so we have to remind our kids, like, play around with these apps, experiment with them, but you stay far away from doing anything that leads to something inappropriate or harmful towards others. You don't even trifle with that. And you see here whether it's a felony offense, whether we're using, other traditional laws in order to, again, bring these students into, juvenile court. It's a big deal. And so we've got to be super careful about this, and we want our kids to know about it. And the last thing I want on your radar has to do with this news story, which you probably heard about a couple weeks ago, where individuals are using these online bots teens are using these online bots just to have their social and relational needs met. If you go into the App Store or Google Play, type in AI girlfriend, AI boyfriend, these apps are free. You can customize how they look. Sometimes you can customize them in very suggestive ways. And then, of course, you interact with them, and they are trained on large language models to talk back to you in a very sort of affectionate, maybe even flirtatious way. Now, it's providing short-term gratification and benefits, but long-term research is showing it's leading to negatives in terms of how a teen approaches another person romantically, how they objectify that person, how they feel like they can control that person, how they start to demand certain things from that person without remembering that that other person is a separate person and not a bot based on their interactions with that bot. And so the case I was telling you about, character AI, there was a kid who created a bot and fell in love with this bot over the course of 10 months. And then there was just a tragic outcome where it comes to that bot encouraging that kid in certain ways. And you can look that up at your leisure. I think Google is also being sued because they're providing funding and processing power to character AI. Very last point, and Superintendent Beeman, thank you for just giving me about 30 seconds. This is all intuitive. Have a conversation about use, ethical use and unethical use. Tell them that they always should be open about their use when they're creating school projects and essays and reports. Be skeptical when it comes to the outputs. My students have submitted assignments, and I absolutely know that this is completely generated from AI, plus it's fake, because I can verify it. They're called hallucinations. And then they should trust their senses. Because all of us, if we look carefully at an image or a video, and if something strikes us as, this is manipulated, this is doctored, trust that. Because there's a lot of disinformation and misinformation out there, and you don't want to be fooled, and you don't want to be a victim of identity theft or anything worse. Check out Connect Safely. They have all of these guides for you, all free, for any app, any platform, any new device that's come down the pike, with PDFs, screenshots, clear directions for the layperson about how to use them and to support your child. If you need anything in the future, I think you can tell. I'm passionate about this. I would love to come through for you. I promise to message you back if you email me related to any questions, not just today, down the road, into the future. We're going to continue to come alongside of you and support you. Thank you so much for your time. Of course.
All parents, testing. Yep, okay. Parents, thank you for coming this evening, and I hope that a number of your questions about school safety, about the resources available to you and your students, that they've been answered, those questions, and that you have that information, and that something that was shared by Dr. Hinduja better helps you in navigating your relationship with your student and their relationship with safe technology use. I want you to know that all of the resources that we've talked about will be available to you. This has been recorded, and we're going to push out that information so that you'll be able to have it to go on and dig through some of those resources, but also a direct connect to Seminole County Public Schools when you have questions, when you need resources. Because we really do want to partner with you so that our students remain safe. particularly when they're on our campus. So thank you for coming out, and look forward to continued partnership with you in regards to all of our students. Thank you.